Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Julia, and if you haven't already subscribed, you totally should. One of my goals for this channel once I get monetized is to donate to cancer research, so if you want to help a girl out, please subscribe and hit the thumbs up button and comment down below, or do any of the above, and that would be really appreciated. So yeah, but enough about that. So today in this video I wanted to talk about climate change and specifically how you can help, because I've heard this term thrown around a lot, but I realize that not a lot of people actually understand what it really means. I'm an environmental science major, so I thought that I would impart some of my information onto you guys to help you understand a bit more, because I guess we hear about the fact that the climate is changing, but we don't really understand how and what the effects of that are. So yeah, without further ado, let's just get into this video. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is, what is climate change? So the easiest way I can think to say it is that climate change is the changing of climate, which climate are the natural patterns of weather that our planet falls into, or the specific geographic area where you live. So that is what climate is, and climate change is when humans or our anthropogenic activities are affecting the planet and the way it works. So let's talk about some ways in which the planet can actually exacerbate climate change. So this is known as the Mikhailovich cycles. This dictates kind of 2 or 3 different types of ways in which the planet exacerbates climate change, and I'm only going to talk about 2. So I guess the first thing I'll talk about is the orbit. So every 100,000 years, our planet shifts from a more circular orbit to a more elliptical orbit. So when you're in a more elliptical orbit, the distance closer to and away from the sun is getting larger. So therefore, this ends up in more type of drastic weather patterns, colder winters and hotter summers, versus when more cylindrical orbit occurs. This is less so the case. There's less variation in terms of the different types of climates that you can have, or the drastic impact of kind of the weather. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the tilt of the Earth, how this specifically affects our planet. So we all know that our Earth is at a tilt. This tilt varies roughly between 22 degrees and 24 degrees, sometimes up to 25 degrees. But when there is less tilt on our planet, climate change is less impacted, or is less drastic, because of the distance to and away from the sun. When the planet has less tilt, the climate change effects are less drastic when it is around 22 degrees, but when it's around 24 degrees, changes in climate tend to become a bit more drastic. So the tilt varies much more frequently than our orbit changes. So that is something to take into consideration, that we cannot personally, I guess, do anything about, but something that does exacerbate climate change. So now I think I should talk about the ways that we as humans exacerbate climate change. Not you on an individual level specifically, but how humans as a collective society impact climate change. So there are several greenhouse gases and several gases that are prevalent on our Earth. I guess the most common ones would be carbon dioxide, but there's also ones like sulfur oxide, carbon oxide, halocarbons, methane, ethane, nitrates. They're all prevalent on our planet, and low quantities of them, they're not harmful to our planet because they occur naturally on the Earth. But when we live in a capitalistic society, supply exceeds our demand. This is a problem because we are increasing the percentage or the amount of sulfur oxides, carbon dioxide, and various other halocarbons that we create, and these emissions are going into the atmosphere, and they are depleting the ozone layer. And the ozone layer is what essentially protects us from the harmful rays of the sun. So when you have these naturally occurring gases that are produced in too high quantities, this is an issue because we weaken the ozone, and then the impacts of the sun, heat up the planet. Greenhouse gases in itself aren't bad because they do prevent the planet from freezing over, but when produced in excess, this is a problem. So how does this exactly happen? Well, vehicular emissions and industrial emissions do play a large factor in this. Agricultural emissions, also the overbreeding of cows for consumption. Cows do produce an insane amount of methane and carbon. This specific type of animal and the way that we breed it, and because we consume it, it is very harmful to the planet. I guess how an individual, how you impact climate change on an individual level. I guess some of the ways that you can affect your ecological footprint is the type of house you live in, what type of car you drive, the type of food you consume. If you are more of an active person who likes to get out a lot, your vehicular emissions would be much higher than someone who prefers to live a more isolated lifestyle. So now I've given the basic rundown of what climate change is and how we as humans impact it. But now I wanted to talk about some of the solutions or some of the easy things that you can do to lessen your impact on the planet. So I guess the most common thing that I've heard from this is, oh, we're just one person, like we can't really do anything. And I could really not underscore how false of a statement this is. We do not realize how much of an impact we as one person and our lifestyle, and specifically the lifestyle that we live, but the lifestyle that most people live, how it impacts the planet. It does have a much larger impact than you would believe it to have. So, the first and most important thing you could do is register to vote. This is extremely important because when you are voting for policies or very aggressive climate change policies and policies that kind of help the environment and to sustain it for our generation and future generations, I would say this is the most impactful thing you can do. So voting does not take that much time, but it is very important. So if you are not registered to vote, you should do so if you care about the planet and you want to make sure that the policies that you see or would like to put into place are being put into place. The second thing I would say is to give up your car. I know this sounds a bit drastic, but let me explain. So if you live in a city where you have very good public transportation, it is not necessary for you to own a car. So if you do live in an area where there is good public transportation, it is much cheaper and much easier to use that public transportation, and also the risk of you getting into a car crash goes down significantly. Because of COVID-19 right now, this may not be a solution that we can currently implement, but in the future it will be. So if you are someone who does not need a car, I would suggest going without it. But if you are someone that does need a car, I would highly suggest purchasing an electric or hybrid vehicle. Now, the reason I say this is because I feel like people often get the impression that electric vehicles are more expensive than their gas-emitting equivalent, and this is not exactly true, especially if you buy a car used. An electric vehicle would be the preferred mode of transportation. If you can, it would be better to buy an electric vehicle or just to become friends with someone or know someone in your family who owns a vehicle For example, I have my driver's license, but I don't own a vehicle. I don't see the need to own a vehicle, especially in my current situation. If I were going to buy a vehicle, I would probably buy it at some later point in life, that is not right now. The next thing you could do is, please, for the love of God, do not buy plastic water bottles. Plastic water bottles are really damaging to the planet. It takes more water to make the plastic water bottle than the water that is in the plastic water bottle. So it's extremely resource intensive. And not only this, when you're drinking from a plastic water bottle, you are drinking the microplastics that shed off the plastic water bottle. So if you drink from plastic water bottle, in a year you consume about 40,000 pieces of microplastic. It does not matter whether this water bottle is BPA free or not. It's very bad for you. So please opt for a reusable water bottle or a ceramic mug or something like that. So the next thing I could talk about is hang drying your laundry instead of using a dryer. Dryers are extremely resource intensive and they are slowly yet surely burning your clothing. So if you use a dryer, you may be saving time, but you're not saving money because you're shortening the lifespan of your clothing. So the frequency with which you will have to buy new clothing increases tenfold as opposed to if you were hang drying your clothing. The next thing I would say you could do is to stop buying firsthand and start buying secondhand. I thrift a lot of my clothing. I find that it's easier to find the pieces that I want at a discounted price, so it's much more economically logical. The next thing I would say that you can do to help lessen the effects of climate change is to stop eating beef. Beef is extremely resource intensive. To raise a cow and cattle in general, it takes a lot more acres of land and a lot more water than it would to raise chickens or any sort of other smaller type of animal. And also the methane production is significantly less for the other animals. So I would say, if you can, please stop eating beef. The last thing I would say to do is to cut down on the amount of plastic you produce by eating out less and buying produce that is not packaged in plastic, using reusable produce bags and reusable grocery bags, and as well as not purchasing an extremely large amount of items, or if you are purchasing them, purchase them secondhand. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and I hope that you found it helpful. These are just a couple of things that you could do. There are so many more, but these are all I could think of right now, and I did not want to make this video too long. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye!